Today we start a new unit called Ecology. Ecology is the study of the interactions between organisms and their environment. So ecologists study all sorts of interesting things. How does pollution affect fish in the ocean? How do lions survive in their ecosystem? How do we keep our streams clean? Okay, so ecologists study how different organisms like humans and bacteria and trees and fish and all sorts of things, mushrooms, how do these interact with their environment? Today we're going to focus on the levels of organization in ecology, also called the hierarchy of life. So maybe you've seen Finding Nemo. We're going to look at examples of organisms in an ocean ecosystem, and we're going to start small and work bigger. So an organism is a single living thing. And an example could be one clownfish, like Nemo in Finding Nemo. So an individual organism is one single living thing, like this clownfish here. Next we have a population. A population is a group of the same organisms, of the same species. So a population is a group of organisms of one species that live together and can produce fertile offspring. For example, a group of clownfish that can have clownfish babies together. That's a population. So again, a population is a group of organisms of one species that live together and produce fertile offspring. That means in this group of clownfish, the clownfish parents can have children, and those children can have children when they grow up, right? So an organism is one single clownfish, as an example, and a population would be a lot of clownfish living together that can reproduce and have offspring. Okay, so next we're going to get up to the community level. Communities are groups of populations living together of different species. So we're going to use our ocean example again. If we think about the ocean where Nemo lives, the community would be the clownfish that live in the community, the other types of fish that live in the community, the coral, the bacteria, the algae. All the living things that live in that area are part of the community. Lots of species living and working together. The sharks, this is where you get your food webs, like sharks eating fish, fish eating algae and smaller fish. That's part of the community. So in this example, the community, okay, is a group of populations living together and interacting with each other. For example, if we think about this marine community, we could have our population of little Nemo fish, or clownfish. Now, 3 or 4 fish don't make up a population, but I don't want to draw hundreds of clownfish. And then maybe we have our populations of coral. Okay, Then maybe we have the bacteria that live on this coral. Then maybe we have the phytoplankton, the algae. So all of these organisms together make up the community, right? We have algae, we have fish, we have coral, we have bacteria. These all work together to make up a healthy community. Next, we have ecosystem. The ecosystem is all the living things that are part of the community, plus the non-living things like the water, the oxygen in the water, the chemicals in the water, the salt in the water. So an ecosystem is the living and non-living things in our environment. Let's go back to our marine example. So an ecosystem is the fish, the coral, the bacteria. That's the living stuff that makes up the community, plus the water, the salt, the rocks. So ecosystem is all the living and non-living things in an ecosystem. We'll get back to what these words biotic and abiotic mean in just a second. So an ecosystem is the living organisms, which is the community, and the non-living material in an area. Okay, and it's how these things interact with each other. Living things are known as biotic, and non-living things are known as abiotic, but we'll come back to that. So for example, we could talk about a marine, also known as an ocean ecosystem. So the living things might include the fish, the coral, the bacteria, and the algae. And then the non-living things might be the water, rocks, salt, the sunlight, the ocean currents. And these two things work together and interact. Now some of the words we're going to learn about in just a minute, the living, right here, these living things can be called the biotic things. And then over here, the non-living things in this ecosystem, like these, can be called the abiotic factors. So an ecosystem is the biotic and abiotic factors working together. A biome is really just different types of ecosystems. So biomes are connected ecosystems with similar features. So they have similar plants, they have similar animals, they have similar rainfall, they have similar temperature, they have similar patterns of sunlight. Okay? So examples of biomes are probably things you've heard before. The savanna, right? A deciduous forest, which is what the area in Virginia that we live in is called. A desert, the tundra, the taiga, an ocean or marine environment, a lake ecosystem. So these are all examples of biomes, and we're going to have time to learn more about those next week. The biosphere is the Earth. So our example for biosphere is Earth. The biosphere is all parts of the Earth that can support life. So the parts of the atmosphere that can support life, the parts of the ocean, the parts of the land, the parts of the lake, all the parts of the earth that can support life. So like I said before, here's an ecosystem. There are lots of different ecosystems, terrestrial ecosystems, like this is a deciduous forest, this is a shrubland, or maybe a desert. Aquatic ecosystems, like here's a lake, Here's a marine ecosystem, an ocean ecosystem. Okay. And then in different areas of the world, we have organization. So we have lots of ecosystems linked together here that makes up a desert. We have lots of ecosystems linked together here that makes up a deciduous forest. We have lots of ecosystems together here that makes up a deciduous forest. Okay, we have marine ecosystems here. So the biosphere is the entire Earth and all of its living and non-living parts. The last two parts of these notes are biotic factors, which are all living organisms that are part of an environment, and abiotic factors, all the non-living things that are part of an environment. So, for example, in this picture, right, you can clearly see this is alive, this is living, moss is living, and then these rocks are non-living. The air is non-living. So these work together to make up a healthy ecosystem. So in this picture, I want you to pause the video and come up with 4 biotic and 4 abiotic factors in this picture. So pause the video. Okay, once you restart the video, let's see if you came up with some of the biotic factors that I came up with. So this hawk is biotic. This lily pad is biotic. These fish are biotic. This turtle is biotic. These trees are biotic. This dead tree, is it biotic or abiotic? Well, the rule is, if it was once alive, it's considered biotic. So dead trees or dead animals are biotic as well. There's probably even bacteria in this picture and mushrooms and fungus in this picture that we can't see, but they're still biotic. This person is biotic. Abiotic things include the water, include rocks, include the air, and the air currents and the water currents, and any minerals like nitrogen and phosphorus you see. The clouds are abiotic or non-living. The sun is abiotic or non-living. So those are the biotic and abiotic components. So let's write this down in our notes. Okay, the biotic factors are the living organisms in an ecosystem. And it could include any plants, any animals, any fungi, like mushrooms, any bacteria, and there are lots of types of bacteria we'll talk about later, and also protists, like amoeba or paramecium. Abiotic factors are the non-living components of an ecosystem. And these include sunlight, water, rocks, minerals, any type of weather you can think of, clouds, rain, temperature changes. Another one a lot of people don't think of is viruses. Viruses are actually considered non-living. So these are our notes for this week. Please make sure you watch them and fill in your notes before class on Tuesday. Thanks. Miss you guys. Miss Kenny out.